So I haven't been fingerprinted since I was deported from London. That's the story. Being deported from London. I thought about that today because I had to go do my visa so that I can make it abroad for some spiritual work, but also for some plant medicine work, i.e. tattoo work, and putting, more into my brand. I'll tell you more about the proprietary part of my brand and what's going on later on. This is not that discussion. So look, I put it on Facebook because I was like, damn, the last time I was actually fingerprinted was over 10 years ago when I was deported from London. And everybody's like, what? And I was like, yes, it's a thing. And I'm going to preface this story with, if you tattoo, and if you have a trade that allows you to move around, specifically a trade, not just, doing things online, not the work from anywhere type of life, but if you have a trade like tattoo or anything like that, it is helpful, beyond helpful, to know the law of the space that you're going into. I tattoo in Japan. I have to know Japanese laws. When you go city to city, state to state, you should always know those laws, all of those good things, because they help you navigate. Eventually, I'll tell you a story about nuances in me going to Japan. This ain't that story. So I get my passport. I'm going to London. Let me go ahead and tell you, I was not tattooing in London. That wasn't the goal. The goal was actually to go to London to meet up with Maya and Tuki. They were on their way to Amsterdam. Hey, gals and guys, how are you? Okay, so don't mind me. I'm in my kitchen. I'm about to prepare dinner. Wash dishes first and prepare dinner. But I wanted to get to this tattoo story right quick, right? So Shop Gal Diaries, just so you know, while we will be exploring ink, identity, and inspiration, some of the inspiration will be these tattoo stories, because my god sister even said earlier, she was like, oh my god, you're like your life is like a movie, because there are some odd things that have happened in tattoo that I find extremely funny these days. They may not have been funny while they were happening, but also I see how they shape me, how they shape my practice, and then ultimately how they help shape my brand. The one thing that I can say to this is, as I tell these stories, I want you to think about your own brand, because a lot of people think that I want you to think about your own brand, because a lot of people think that branding and brand building is all about like the logos, the pretty pictures, and all that stuff. It's not. Those things are great, and yes, they communicate visual things. They help people know who you are, how to identify you, all those good things, right? But your brand is based off of the experiences that you've had, right? And how those experiences help shape you professionally, publicly, being a service leader, influencer, whatever, right? And how people perceive you. There is a question I often have, I give to people that I've coached in branding, especially tattoo apprentices, which is, how do you want to perceive yourself? And then how do you want the world to perceive you, right? And you can shape all of those things in a brand. So with that, there are tons of stories that I have about tattoo that have helped me shape myself into an unforgettable, engaging brand that calls in the people who I want to tattoo. My goal all the time is that my practice should feel like old friends, just communing and coming together to tell stories. And then I get to take those stories and shape them and put them on your body. So any and everything that is inside now you can wear outside, you can express yourself, all of those good things. And the easiest thing to do is to look at your stories and look at the things that you have experienced and how you tell those stories. So that said, let me go ahead and get into this story, right? I haven't been deported, or I haven't been fingerprinted since the last time. Not the last time. I haven't been fingerprinted. So I haven't been fingerprinted since I was deported from London. That's the story. Being deported from London. I thought about that today because I had to go do my visa so that I can make it abroad for some spiritual work, but also for some plant medicine work, i.e. tattoo work, and putting, more into my brand. I'll tell you more about the proprietary part of my brand and what's going on later on. This is not that discussion. So look, I put it on Facebook because I was like, damn, the last time I was actually fingerprinted was over 10 years ago when I was deported from London. And everybody's like, what? And I was like, yes, it's a thing. And I'm going to preface this story with, if you tattoo, and if you have a trade that allows you to move around, specifically a trade, not just, doing things online, not the work from anywhere type of life, but if you have a trade like tattoo or anything like that, it is helpful, beyond helpful, to know the law of the space that you're going into. I tattoo in Japan. I have to know Japanese laws. When you go city to city, state to state, you should always know those laws, all of those good things, because they help you navigate. Eventually, I'll tell you a story about nuances and me going to Japan. This ain't that story. So I get my passport. I'm going to London. Let me go ahead and tell you, I was not tattooing in London. That wasn't the goal. The goal was actually to go to London to meet up with Maya and Tuki. They were on their way to Amsterdam. I had no interest in going to Amsterdam at that time because I did not understand what I would want to see in Amsterdam, right? This is before I understood certain museums that were there that I do want to engage with. Nevertheless, and their architecture. Oh my God. Either way, I didn't know what I wanted to engage with in Amsterdam, but I had a client who was in London, and I was like, I would love to see him, hug his neck, meet family, people who I've only been able to see online, right? And then the boys were going to come back down from Amsterdam, scoop me up from London, and we were going to go to Paris. And it was going to be a whole Niggas in Paris event. This is literally around the time Niggas in Paris came out. We was bopping it. We was like, yeah, it's going to be a vibe. Only girl going, right? Which is always fun. That's my jam. Queen among kings. So we're deciding that, we're going to go. I get my ticket, all this great stuff. Here's the thing. The U.S. flagged my bags while they were apart from me because London is very, very strict about their economy. They do have an issue with immigration, and they have issue with their actual financial economy as it pertains to immigration and how foreigners come over, make money, and don't put back in the pot, whatever the case may be. I understand these things. So when I went to go get my passport to get ready, I asked them if I needed a visa. And they said, no, you don't need a visa. You're only going for a week. Nobody gets a visa for that long, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, just in case I make money, do I need a visa? And no, you don't need a visa. All right, cool. So I'm going to trust you because you're the professional. I'm asking the questions because you're the professional, right? That wasn't the case, obviously. We knew enough to know that I needed a letter of invitation, and I needed something to say that I was going to be staying with these people in their care, X, Y, and Z. So we had all of that documentation, and again, no visa. So I get to London. I'm like, yeah, and everybody's like, the trick is say, blah, blah, blah. And I was going to say blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say it online so that in case anybody uses this trick, it doesn't put y'all in trouble for any reason. But they were like, say this. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna say that. So I got off the plane, filled out my little customs form, and London is very strict. So the UK is very strict that if you are entering through Heathrow Airport, that you need to make sure you know all of your information. You need to know where you're staying. You need to know their information. You need to know their address, their phone number, all this stuff. Because other than that, you're going to be seen as someone who's going to be an immigrant and who is going to fuck with their economy. They're really, they're really no balls about that, and no problem with that. So I decide that I am going to say X, Y, and Z, and I get there, I give my form, and they're like, ma'am, why are you entering our country today? And where X, Y, and Z, insert X, Y, and Z was supposed to happen here. That's not what happened. What happened was, in truth, it came out that I was visiting some tattoo friends. And that was it. I didn't say I'm just here for tourism. I literally said, you know, I'm here visiting some tattoo friends and seeing their new shop. Well, this was before I knew that my bags were flagged and all this good stuff, right? So he was like, we're going to have to detain you. And I was like, the fuck? Because I didn't have a visa. He asked me if I was making money. And I was like, no, that's not the plan. And he was just like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. He asked about my other paperwork. I was like, yeah, you have it. Like, you know, you can call them, all this great stuff. So he was like, oh, we're still going to have to detain you. Again, the fuck. So they detained me only to find out, like, later on, I'm going to go ahead and let you know, like, it wasn't a bad detainment. Like, don't be like, oh my God. It wasn't bad at all. They were extremely kind. As long as I wasn't being like uppity, you know, loudmouth, trying to fight the system and buck the system American, they were literally chill. Like, everybody was chill, from the nationalist, like the nationals who are, you know, higher up, and, you know, police officers, down to the people who detain me, down to my detaining officer, who at the end of it all gave me a hug. So, you know, they had to, like, the process, I don't quite remember. I do remember they took my bags, like, they separated me from my bags, and they asked me, did I know why I was being detained? And I'm like, no, I don't even know what's going on, this and the third. And they were like, well, we see that you have tattoo supplies. Word. So on this weekend, it's very important to say that there was a tattoo convention. So they were, what I didn't understand, what I didn't know, and I didn't check the calendar also to know, was that they were already on high alert. And one of the reasons my bags were flagged and not, I wasn't notified with being apart from my bags even before I left the US, is because if my paperwork wasn't ordered, they were going to let me into the country. No problem. So I guess this was something that they were doing in practice all the way around. So if you were a tattoo artist and you were coming from the US or coming from X, Y, and Z, you know, if you got the customs, you had the right paperwork, then cool. If you didn't, you were detained, because it would probably seem like you were coming in dishonestly to be a part of this show. Cool. Got it. Again, there was no problem there. Part of me is like, you know, sometimes I see things like this in other countries, and I'm just like, if America did their job, we wouldn't have half the shit happening that we do. But that's not my circus, not my monkeys. Sips tea. So they go through my bag. Some of the officials actually go through my portfolio, because my portfolio was there, and they're like, oh my God, I love this. Oh my God, this is amazing. You know, they're really like loving my work there. You know, it was one black official, and he was like, I really need you to come back, but I need you to come back with the proper documentation. I can't just let you through, but you're so gifted. Like, I want you here. They exchanged information with me, everything. Like, they took my card. They had to mark everything as like evidence, or I forgot what it was marked. My portfolio still had the thing on it. the tape that they put on it when I decided to change my portfolio, because I was like, this just looks like I'm a criminal, and while I love being a badass, that's not the badassery that I'm looking for. So I end up they end up, talking to me about my work. I tell them exactly what I do. Fine lines for melanated folk at this time. Not even going into Afro Kawaii. I'm just like, no, I'm fine line tattoo artist, fine line for my melanin folks. I'm here for black people, this, that, and third. And they're like, yes, boom, bye, yeah. All this shit. Great cheerleaders. And then they're also like, okay, so we're going to have to get you to the detainment room. And I was just like, all right, cool. And I think what made the process not scary and more like this is just a part of the process type of deal is that they treated me like a human. Like, nobody was mean to me. Nobody was like, like, get your ass over. None of that. Like, it was literally like, I see you, but also you skipped this step. My bad. So they took my stuff. They ended up putting me in a detainment room. In that time, I met an Australian chick who was detained. Like, they gave me a blanket, they gave me hot chocolate, they gave me a sandwich, any and everything I needed. And I could ask questions, so it wasn't like, don't talk to me or anything like that. Like, again, everyone was extremely pleasant. And this is the part where I say, maybe I am God's favorite child, because I'd heard horror stories about people not having those experiences. So when people heard my experience, they're like, wait, what? They were nice to you? Yeah. Gave me hot chocolate. Gave me a sandwich. Gave me a blanket because it was cold and I didn't have my belongings because they had to be detained away from me, right? So eventually, I wake up, I meet her, we're talking, she's telling me how, like, she was coming through for just a vacation, but because she was gone from her country for so long, I think she was on like a month holiday, so she had skipped over to Canada and then was skipping over to London and spent like 2 weeks with her friend before going back to Australia, all this stuff, and they were like, skirt, that looks suspicious. Like, that's sus. And it was just like, people do this all the time. So they end up detaining me, or, I end up going into an interview room. They interview me, they ask me all questions, like, why didn't you just say X, Y, and Z? Because apparently everybody knows this trick. I'm still not going to say it. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I feel like being honest is the best policy, ? Because this feels like a trick question at this point. And they're like, okay, like, thank you. We greatly appreciate your honesty because that's very important. They fingerprinted me, and that's how we got to the conversation or the note that I haven't been fingerprinted since this particular incident. Excuse me. Since this particular incident. And that was over 10, maybe 12 years ago, maybe 12 to 15 years ago, because me and my fiance have been together for almost 11. So it's got to be like somewhere between 13 and 15 years. I don't know. We can date it literally by when Niggas in Paris came out, because I think it wasn't even 6 months after that we were supposed to be going and meeting up. But yeah, we could date it by that album in real life. So, I had my interview. I passed my interview, check, because they did enjoy, or they respected the fact that I was honest. I didn't have anything to hide, I wasn't even supposed to be tattooing there, so there wasn't really much to say. And, I even told them that I asked in the U.S. if I needed a visa just in case of making money. And they were like, yeah, the just in case is why you would have actually needed a visa and why we can't let you in. And I wish they were smart enough to know these rules for the UK and that they would not have advised you so poorly, because now we got to send you back. And I was like, understood, because sometimes we be on some shit and that's just that. So there was that. And then nap time, some more snacks, all that good stuff. Got fingerprinted, had another interview, and then my detaining officer comes in. This is where it gets really, really cool. My detaining officer comes in and he sits down and he's just like, I'm not even supposed to be here, but I really wanted to come and thank you for your incredible honesty. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, because your bags were flagged. So we were already ready to detain, like actually lock you up, not just detain you, but lock you up, because you would have been breaching like immigration standards, this, that, and the third. So they had already assumed the worst of me. And he was just like, I just, because I see the adverse happen often, I want to come and I want to thank you for being honest about why you were here and what you were doing. I was like, my G, I wasn't even supposed to be tattooing here. I was really just seeing folks that I've tattooed in the US, get some hugs, see family, say what's up, and on my way to Paris. So, end of the story is that, hold on. Okay, so the last part of this story is going home. So they changed my ticket. Mind you, this whole process and getting to London, being detained, coming home, 24-hour ride. Like literally, I left at 10 a.m. one morning and I got back 10 a.m. the next morning. So I'm over there and they changed my ticket, my return ticket. They call United, let them know, like, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. The cool thing was literally how they escorted me on the flight. So the officials, there's one official in front, one official behind. I can't carry my bags. I can't handle my passport. I'm treated like a complete criminal with fingerprints. And then they give me hugs. And we're having cool conversation on the way to my flight. They talked to the pilot, let them know. They talked to the marshal, let them know. They gave the marshal my passport and everything, and what seat number I'm sitting in, all that good stuff. They were kind to make sure that I had a seat that I preferred, which usually I prefer window seat. So they were kind enough to do that, and then they sent me on my way. I came back. And when I deplaned, I got my passport back. I was able to handle my luggage and all that good stuff. And I brought my black ass home. I never made it to Paris. I never made it to London. I have not been back since. And not because I don't want to go back. One, my detaining officer did advise that if I come back, he said, I don't care if it's 10 years, 20, 30, 40, whatever. The very next time I come back, to make sure that I am not in any ish to just, have a visa, even if I'm not making money. That way, I can forego anything, but because I'm already fingerprinted, they're going to be watching. And I'm with the shits. So when I go back, because there are some tattoo friends there, shout out Mort. There are some tattoo friends there that I do want to connect with. And I have not been able to go over there to hang out. And I need to go back to Paris because that's my third or fourth home. That I really do need to get a visa and go over there. But that's the story of me being deported from London. If you are a tattoo artist, again, I cannot stress how much it is important to have people who are within the culture or within the country that you want to visit if you want to actively tattoo. It is also very, very important that you know and understand the laws, at least on a rudimentary scale, like as basic as possible, and not assume that just because your laws are this way where you are, that they're going to be that way, especially if you go abroad. There are some wild rules to being locked up. And while I was not locked up, I was detained. But if you've ever seen, about being in international jail or anything like that, that shit is not for the faint at heart. And it is not, it is not for your girl. So if you don't want that life, if you don't want to deal in international jail, prisons and jails are a lot tougher, a lot harder than the US. So I wouldn't even gamble with that, right? So if you're a tattoo artist, if you want to be an international tattoo artist, if you are building an international brand of any kind, always know the law, so you know what laws you're trading under, what laws you're trading money for your gifts under, so that way you don't get got. And in my case, you don't get deported. So that's it for Shop Gal Diaries for this week. I will see you guys either next week or the week after with another story. If there's anything that you have seen about my life as a tattoo artist, especially, or about my brand that you're wondering about, please ask questions. I am happy to answer them. And if it has a cool story with it, I'm happy to put it here in the diary. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Until next time, I am always rooting for you. Bye bye.